Secretary of State Antony Blinken on the morning where we heard the president about an hour ago believed that within any day now, Russia will attack Ukraine. But as you heard Secretary of State Blinken just now, right there, before the UN Security Council, he is there, he says, not to start a war, but to prevent one. Let's bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, along with ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy for more. Guys, we're talking again this morning. It seems like a same conversation, really. Putin says he's pulling troops back. Clearly, he's not. They're amassing on the border. Biden, within the last hour, addressed reporters on his departure, saying he believes any day now there will be an attack. But now we are hearing from Secretary of State Blinken, as Mary Alice has pointed out all morning, he's trying to present the path forward, deal with this in a diplomatic way. He just told the entire UN Security Council his goal is not to start a war, but to help prevent one here. So what stands out about his words? Mary Alice, I'll start with you. And do you think they are going to make any type of impact moving forward now?
A few things stood out to me, Kira. Like you said, he said that if Russia is committed to diplomacy, the U.S. is leaving every door open. He offered to meet again with his Russian counterparts in Europe next week and talked about the fact that there have been so many sort of overtures like that, including today there at the UN Security Council. And he also called on Russia to publicly state, to publicly announce that it will not invade. For the last few weeks, we've been hearing Russia sort of point the finger back at the United States, call the United States hysterical, saying that they are sort of banging a drumbeat of war. They're making these assertions that Russia plans to invade. And so you heard Secretary of State Blinken there try to flip the script and say that Russia, if it does not intend to invade, should make that promise now, that the world would remember it, that it would go a long way if they could say that that was actually not their intentions. And then last, Kira, I agree that that moment where Secretary of State Blinken seemed to almost acknowledge, at least what I thought he was acknowledging, kind of implicitly acknowledging moments in the past where we have seen U.S. secretaries of state, U.S. officials stand right there in front of the U.S. Security Council, or the UN Security Council, rather, and talk about U.S. intelligence regarding a possibility of a war. And, you know, we're all remembering these moments leading up to Iraq when the U.S. Intelligence was questioned later. And he said the difference now is that we are not looking to start a war, but to prevent a war. And he said the U.S., if proven wrong, would be relieved.
Mick, from what you heard, can the Secretary of State prevent this war, this pending war?
Well, he's certainly trying. I think that they have shown a very effective use of declassification of intelligence that foreshadowed this use of a false flag, which is now, I think, falling flat. That said, it only really has to play in Russia. And to Mary Alice's point, I mean, Russia, they're the ones that have threatened invasion. They're the ones that have built 150,000 troops on the border, and then to call the West hysterical is just nonsensical. They've created this crisis, and it's really up to them. As the Secretary pointed out, they can, right there, declare that they're not going to invade the Ukraine, and they can willfully go back to the negotiation table under the Minsk Protocol, or the Minsk Agreement, as we're calling it. Those are things that they can do today, and then nobody needs to be hysterical.
How about a refresher? Minsk agreements, as you heard the Secretary of State say, he believes this is the only way to solve this crisis. Let's, from both of your perspectives, maybe Mary Alice, we can start with you. Why are these agreements so essential to reevaluate today?
Well, look, Russia is starting to make these claims that there is increased violence in the eastern part of Ukraine. And the reality is there has been violence in that area for years. You know, it's so strange for us to think and to remember that Ukrainians have actually been fighting for their territorial integrity, for their sovereign borders for a decade, since Russian separatists started to cross the border there, since Russia started to support sort of separatist activity in that eastern region. region. It's something that so many of us can't really imagine, that reality of fighting for your country's borders in today's age. But that's exactly what's been going on there in the East, like I said, for over a decade. And the Minsk agreement sort of deal with how to create a ceasefire there. Obviously, Ukraine doesn't like the idea of giving up any bit of its sovereign territory. Russia wants them to admit that some of that eastern region should be owned by Russia, should be controlled by Russia. And they've been debating these agreements, these treaties for years and years and years. And what Secretary of State Blinken is saying is, let's come back to the table. Let's continue to negotiate an agreement and some ceasefire in that region.
And Mick, maybe this is a good time to remind people why Putin in no way, shape, or form wants Ukraine to be a part of NATO.
Well, yes, absolutely. He views Ukraine as essentially a part of Russia, and he, to his statements, he does not want to have a NATO country, which would then have all of the protections guaranteed under Article 5 of the NATO treaty for protection from everyone, including the United States. So that's his main concern. To the point of your question, when it comes to the Minsk protocol or agreement, there's two of them. They deal with the Donbass, Mary Alice said, and that's the area that's got a heavy ethnically Russian population. So he is using that and his need to protect that population as his reasoning for being so involved in the Ukraine, and that's why they keep going back to that agreement. And of course, they're only pointing out what the Ukrainians didn't do. They're not pointing out that they essentially did nothing under that agreement as well.
Mick Mulroy, Mary Alice Parks, we will follow this ongoing and breaking story throughout the day. Appreciate your analysis, your insight as we follow all these live events. Thanks, guys.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.